I rise as we celebrate Black History Month to honor an extraordinary American hero that I had the great pleasure to know. From my home community in Ohio, Lieutenant Colonel Harold H. Brown. He was a Tuskegee Airman, and this is a bronze statue that was cast in our region as part of our Air Force Museum, honoring his astounding life. He was a warrior for justice on many fronts and an unwavering patriot. He was always happy. His story is one of resilience, excellence, and service, embodying the very best of our nation's ideals. From a young age, Harold dreamed of soaring through the skies. I don't know where he got that idea, but just at 19 years old, he turned that dream into reality as a pilot in the legendary Tuskegee Airmen. These were a heroic group of African American aviators who defied both gravity and systemic racism to serve their country during World War II. And as others have referenced tonight, we stand on their shoulders. Harold flew combat missions with unparalleled skill and valor. He loved to fly, taking on some of the most dangerous missions over war-torn Europe. But his service came at great risk. And the plane you see there, he liked to fly privately also, and would wear a scarf around his neck. He was a great teacher, and he managed community colleges after his service. But during one of his many missions, his plane was shot down in battle, and he was captured as a prisoner of war. Even in captivity, Harold never wavered in his duty to his country. After the war, he continued to serve, answering the call again during the brutal Korean War. He answered the call. His legacy extended beyond the battlefield. He became an educator, beloved, a mentor, and a champion for the desegregation of the United States military. The impact of Harold Brown and his fellow Tuskegee Airmen is immeasurable in this country. The Red Tails, as they were known, flew more than, get ready for this, 15,000 sorties between 1943 and 1945, earning a reputation as some of the most skilled pilots in the United States military. Bomber crews specifically requested their escort, knowing the Tuskegee Airmen would protect them against enemy attacks. They were angels in the sky. They were so brave. They fought not only against the forces of fascism abroad, but again, the deep-seated racism at home, paving the way for the desegregation of the armed forces, with the leadership from Ohio setting a precedent for generations to come. Right in my district of Toledo, the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen lives on. And the area around us in northern Ohio, Ohio is known as the state of flight, and 58 of these brave aviators called Ohio home, with several hailing from the greater Toledo area, and Harold himself from Port Clinton and Points East. Their contributions to our armed forces and to our communities remain an indelible part of our history. Institutions such as the Toledo-Lucas County Public Library, the National Museum of the Great Lakes, and the Liberty Aviation Museum in Port Clinton, Ohio, where this photo was taken, have preserved their stories, ensuring that future generations will remember their courage and their sacrifice. These men were not just warriors in the sky, they were pioneers who shattered social and racial barriers, proving their excellence time and again, despite the discrimination they faced. But despite their heroism, their place in history has not always been respected. Just recently, sadly, we witnessed a shameful attempt to erase the legacy of Harold Brown and countless others who fought with him and for this country. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. Department of Defense, following a sweeping executive order, removed diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, including historical education on renowned figures, including the Tuskegee Airmen and the Women's Air Force Service pilots. A training program that honored these heroes was halted. Their history was nearly erased in the name of a stupid and mean-spirited political agenda that sought to rewrite America's past to fit a narrow, exclusionary narrative. This was more than an insult to the African American community. It was an insult to America itself. It was an affront to every soldier, airman, sailor, and Marine who fought not just for our country, but for the ideals upon which it stands. The removal of these Defense Department programs was a deliberate attempt to diminish the contributions of African Americans in the military and to erase the struggles they overcame in their fight for justice and equality. But let this be a lesson. The power of the American people is stronger than any one administration. When this erasure was exposed, when the outrage of everyday citizens, not just black, not just brown, but white, demanded justice, the American people forced a reckoning with the U.S. Department of Defense and the President of the United States. Public outcry led to the reinstatement of the course honoring the Tuskegee Airmen. Truth cannot be silenced, and history cannot be rewritten to serve the will of the few. We, the people, hold the power to safeguard our history. The legacy of Harold Brown and his daring, patriotic fellow airmen has been restored, not because those in power willingly chose to do so, but because Americans of conscience refuse to allow their contributions to ever be forgotten. This is a testament to the enduring power of truth and justice, and a reminder that each American must remain vigilant in protecting both truth and justice. As we honor Harold Brown today, and he never wanted honor, but the entire community, most of whom were Caucasian like myself, came out. There were music and joy, and there was happiness in his memory. We remember his service, but also we remember his fight. Let us carry forward his mission, not just in the skies, but in every arena where justice is challenged, where history is threatened, and where the sacrifices of our ancestors and predecessors risk being erased. We owe it to Harold Brown and his family. We owe it to the Tuskegee Airmen and their families. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations in the American family. Harold Brown and the Tuskegee Airmen of Northern Ohio changed the world for the better, and so can we. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.